I don't know. Thank you so much. You know, I feel like I should be listening to all of you. I don't know if you've seen the exhibit hall back here, but every one of the businesses back there is a green business or talking about what part of sustainability is important to their product or service. So it's already something that everybody here is probably firmly entrenched in. So I'm excited to be here, and after my remarks, and I've brought some examples with me here to talk about, I look forward to speaking with every one of you that wants to learn more and find more ways to be more sustainable. But I wanted to tell you about an Australian tourist website that I came across with some rather surprising, frequently asked questions. My favorite question was, which way is north in Australia? The answer was, face south and turn 180 degrees. Well, I mention this because while it's funny, it exemplifies the problem that we're trying to deal with as we face the challenge of building a more sustainable world for the future. Too many people just don't understand the world and how to navigate the one that we live in today. And you can forgive them because even those of us that are engaged every day in sustainability policy, technology, and finance, even we can't always see the proverbial forest for the trees. We need new ways to measure, new ways to see what's been lost, but also what can be gained before we can all come together and create sustainable solutions for every community and every product or service. I want to thank Alibaba.com for inviting me here today. And by the way, just a brief digression, it was 2016 that Jack Ma invited me to speak at the board retreat of Alibaba in Hangzhou. And I made a big mistake, which I'm just going to tell you guys, never make this mistake. There was a lovely row like this of nice chairs, and I happened to be in the row right behind. And I was sitting right behind 7'6" Yao Ming, the basketball player. I couldn't see a thing that was going on stage, especially when he stood up. So never make the mistake of sitting behind Yao Ming. But again, I want to thank Alibaba.com because it's a great opportunity to meet with all of you in the room, but also everybody out there watching on the live stream all over the world. And that's the real message today. The world is shrinking. And thanks to platforms like Alibaba.com, we are connected to every business on earth and in turn, every consumer. And they are connected and influencing us. So let me share some lessons learned from my 4 decades to address these questions. And here's one example. In 2010, major cities in Brazil wanted to replace old streetlights with efficient new LEDs. But there were 3 obstacles. First, the LED streetlights were imported and subject to very high import duty, so that made them too expensive. Second, there were mixed results with LED streetlights back in those days, so city managers didn't trust this new technology. And third, there was no way to finance the cost of replacing 400,000 streetlights all at once in Rio de Janeiro alone, and millions more in the 5,600 other cities of Brazil. So working with the nonprofit R20 Regions of Climate Action, led by California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and our China office director who's here today, Dr. Yufu Cheng. Thank you, Yufu. Stand up. That's it. Wave. If you want to know anything about R20 and its wonderful work, talk to him. We introduced manufacturers to the market by hosting technical seminars in Rio and Sao Paulo to arrange LED streetlight production in the country. And that would cut the cost of the new LED streetlights in half. We recruited the country's largest utility, Electrobras, to underwrite the quality specification of the lights, which was especially important in a country as humid and raining as Brazil. And then we crafted a $500 million special purpose finance vehicle for cities to borrow the money to replace the old inefficient streetlights with the new LEDs and save 70% of the energy, reducing 70% of the air pollution and greenhouse gases from power production, and of course, 70% of the cost of that electricity. Google co-founder Larry Page said, "Good ideas are always crazy until they're not." And LED manufacturers thought it was crazy to go into the Brazilian market. Cities thought it was crazy to replace perfectly good streetlights with more expensive ones. And investors thought it was crazy to finance something that couldn't possibly make any money, until we went there and showed them all how to do it. So that's the first lesson of sustainability's potential impact on business. If you see sustainability as a way to find new markets or improve your products and services that can increase your business, and if you collaborate with others, including unconventional partners like NGOs, you will prosper in our new economy. For instance, I'm now the CEO of AltaSea in the Port of Los Angeles, and we're an innovation hub for the blue economy, finding new ways to sustainably source food and fuel and medicines and industrial materials from the ocean, harvesting the limitless renewable energy from waves and tides, producing green hydrogen from seawater that can then be used as a clean fuel in ships, in trucks, trains, and port equipment, and using underwater robots and sensors to learn more about the ecosystem that covers 2/3 of our planet. Yes, our future is not only green, it's also blue, and I invite you all to come and visit us and see how your company can innovate and be part of that blue economy. And that brings me to the second lesson for growing your business and gaining a competitive advantage in your field: thinking outside of your traditional supply chains and ways of measuring success. I wrote a book entitled Cracking the Carbon Code: The Keys to Sustainable Profits in the New Economy. And I referred to the new economy, I should say, that I referred to is the one in which we can no longer afford to pollute the planet or treat its natural resources as things to be consumed today, leaving nothing for tomorrow. New science and data, plus new laws and regulations, especially around our rapidly changing climate and the impacts of not acting sooner that we see in the news every day, are driving the evolution to more sustainable economies. But common sense and the bottom line are driving it even faster. In Cracking the Carbon Code, I explain how you can use and measure your carbon footprint and use it as a way to save money while also saving a planet. And before I give you another example of that, let me briefly remind you of how we measure carbon footprint in scopes. Scope 1 is measuring direct carbon pollution emissions that are controlled by a company, such as energy used in your factory or company-owned computer servers. And Scope 2 are called indirect. Those are emissions that were generated on your behalf, such as burning fossil fuels to ship your product to market. Scope 3 emissions come from things that are more distant from your core business, such as employee airline travel. Now, an early example of cracking the carbon code to make business more environmentally friendly and profitable was the networking giant Cisco Systems. In 2005, John Chambers, the chairman of CEO of Cisco Systems, came to visit Governor Schwarzenegger and me, and he surprised us by saying that his company was already beginning to measure its carbon footprint many years before others were doing it. And as a company with no obvious smokestacks, he nevertheless measured Cisco's Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions based on electricity and fuel bills from leased and owned facilities. He cracked the carbon code by partnering with the Carbon Disclosure Project, which is a nonprofit organization that helped Cisco refine its data collection and reporting. I remember we were sitting around this massive oak conference table in the Reagan cabinet room in the state capitol in Sacramento, and Arnold looked at Chambers after he described all of this, and he said, "So why did you do that?" And Chambers said, well, as a high-tech company, he felt obliged to be ahead of the game, especially when we can use new information technology to do it. But best of all, Cisco saved over $1 million in the first year on energy costs by reducing its carbon footprint, something they might not have done had they not been measuring. By jumping into the measuring game early, Cisco realized that they could reduce carbon pollution and save money by retrofitting servers and buildings with more energy-efficient technology. Like those streetlights in Brazil, the cost was repaid by the savings. And for Cisco, it inspired them to make more energy-efficient servers and networks that other companies wanted, giving them a competitive advantage when selling products or pricing their services against the competition. And taking responsibility for things like employee air travel and their Scope 3 measurements, for example, the knowledge that Cisco gained became motivation to leverage their own video conferencing technology, telepresence, to reduce employee air miles, which of course became very valuable during COVID, and thereby reduce both the cost and the carbon footprint, and again, to sell those services to other companies and increase Cisco's bottom line. But today, the most profitable companies are not just measuring carbon footprints. They're also measuring water and waste and how their businesses impact people. Environment, social, governance, or ESG, now goes well beyond just the carbon code. Mahatma Gandhi said, "The earth provides enough to satisfy everyone's need, but not everyone's greed." It's clear why we would focus on the environment, whether it's the examples that I gave, or the fact that you want a sustainable, affordable, and abundant supply of raw materials for a long time, for your product for a long time to come. Less obvious are the benefits of also looking at the quality of your company's social and governance practices, but make no mistake, the benefits are just as real. And that brings me to the third example of how you can win the sustainability and profitability challenges. I was an advisor to Procter & Gamble when they started to measure their carbon, water, and waste footprints. Their scientists told them that clothes get just as clean in cold water washing as in hot water, and that if they could persuade the users of their Tide laundry detergent to switch from hot water washing to cold, the resulting carbon pollution reduction from not heating all that water would be more than all the emissions from manufacturing the product in the first place. In fact, it would be more greenhouse gas reduction than the emissions from all Procter & Gamble manufacturing combined. And that's funny, last night on television I happened to notice an ad where they were promoting cold water use of Tide laundry detergent. So the company started to promote that fact, doing it again, to help consumers save money on their energy bills and help the planet too. But like Procter & Gamble, the whole Alibaba group can far exceed those goals by helping its users, because Alibaba.com's digital platform, as you've heard in many of the sessions today, is home to 1.3 billion consumers and tens of millions of merchants. The entire Alibaba group has pledged to become carbon neutral by 2030. They've figured out how to crack the carbon code, and to decarbonize 1.5 gigatons of its ecosystem by 2035. And if you're not a carbon scientist, trust me, it's a lot. But of course, it's not just setting an example and asking its partners to follow its lead, because Alibaba.com has almost 7 million green, and now to add blue, sustainable products. And it can deliver practical resources and tools, as we've seen on this stage earlier today, to help your business become carbon neutral too, just like the big ones. And Procter & Gamble took advantage of social media to listen to its consumers, who could directly report their experience with products and what they liked or didn't like. I mean, it's abundantly clear, for example, that mothers wanted diapers and baby products that they knew had no toxins or artificial ingredients. They learned that people who live near factories, some of Procter & Gamble's, but also factories in the supply chain, wanted to improve air and water quality and reduce noise and traffic pollution. By listening to that feedback, P&G improved its ESG scorecard and grew many of its product lines far more than if they had let competitors do that first. But the key to finding ways to be more sustainable and profitable is to get started and never stop innovating. The American humorist Mark Twain said, "A person who holds a cat by the tail learns things he can learn in no other way." Sometimes you just have to try new things. For example, when I was an advisor to Walmart, when they realized that they too were on this sustainability journey, they realized that there were too many new products coming onto the market, probably from companies like yours, to fit on the shelf space in their stores. So they worked with Procter & Gamble, for example, to reduce the size of products like that Tide laundry detergent I mentioned. They realized that the liquid detergent was mostly water. P&G and Walmart were shipping millions of gallons of water from factories to stores to the cars of consumers who then took the product home and put it in their washing machine, where the first thing that they did was put it in the laundry and add water. So by concentrating the product, removing the unnecessary water from the product, they could shrink the package by 2/3, and it would be just as effective when a capful of detergent was added to the laundry instead of a cupful, when that cup of old detergent was mostly water anyway. So Procter & Gamble saved money on the product and packaging and transportation, and Walmart got more space on its shelves for other products that consumers wanted, and they all lowered their carbon footprint. By thinking of the environment and the people using the product, everyone was a winner. So by now you get the idea that sustainability, indeed all three parts of E, S, and G, are good for people, planet, and profit. But there's an old saying that no good deed goes unpunished. And that's certainly true when it comes to things about sustainability. We've all heard companies accused of greenwashing, claiming their products are sustainable when in fact they're not, or not enough. And that's the real challenge here, having measuring, reporting, and verifying, or MRV, that is credible and persuasive. But here also is an opportunity. In many industries, there is still no objective standard for how to set goals for your sustainability journey. How good is good enough? You might report reducing emissions of water use or packaging, but is that 5% of what will be needed to still be in business 10 years from now, or 95%? In another example, in California, we set a target to have our energy use be carbon neutral by 2045. Today, we're about 30% on the way to that goal. But if we only add, let's say, another 1% per year, we'd only be halfway to the goal by 2045. We would fall short. So that makes it clear what level of effort would be needed every single year to hit the goal. It's much less clear in other parts of the economy or business, however. So what do you do? Well, I would start by setting goals for your business, and I must tell you that I learned a lot about this kind of thing from my good friend Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he told me that as a kid in Austria, he set the goal to be the youngest bodybuilding champion in history. His friends said he was crazy, that a scrawny kid from a tiny town in Austria could never achieve that. But by setting the goal and the date that he would have to accomplish it by, he could lay out every step, every day, every week, every month, and measure his progress until, as we all know, he became the youngest bodybuilder champion to win the world title, and then went on to do it 7 more times. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't be the sustainability champion in your industry. In fact, you might be the world leader if those goals don't already exist in your industry. And then take steps to improve your sustainability every year that will get you to your goal by whatever reasonable deadline you set. Then establish a robust MRV program to report your customers and to the world how you're doing. Now, there's many consultants and standard setters out there that can help you on this journey, but I would recommend our host here today, Alibaba.com. It has tools that can be integrated with sustainability initiatives throughout your business, with access to sustainable, ethically sourced suppliers and products, showcasing your sustainable products and values globally, and then even helping with supplier ESG principles and MRV services. On Alibaba.com, for example, sustainable products are certified with criteria like organic and pollution-free, biodegradable, recyclable, and low energy consumption. And there's no greenwashing because verified suppliers have to upload relevant certifications, which then undergo strict review to be listed as sustainable or green, or in the future, blue. Well, let me wrap up my time with you with one more great example of how business can do a lot more with a lot less. I was first asked to give sustainability advice to Walmart back in 2007 when they were just beginning to get started on their initiatives. I flew to Bentonville, Arkansas, and I handed everyone my very big, impressive, embossed business card. And the Walmart team handed me tiny, half-sized cards like this one. I was embarrassed, and I said, "You're asking me for advice about sustainability?" And the CEO, Lee Scott, very sheepishly looked around and he said, "We don't do it because it's sustainable, we do it because it's cheaper." And at that moment, I realized that many of the ways to achieve the goal of sustainable businesses were hiding in plain sight and could even save money, like the large and small business cards that were now laid out in front of me in that meeting. And once you look around, you'll find so many more ways to do more with less, hiding in plain sight. But who will be the first to say that I can do with a little less that my children will have a lot more? Who will be the first to say that my success will not only be measured by the number on the bottom of the balance sheet, but by the balance of clean air and water and healthy landscapes that I bequeath to my children? And who will be the first to answer the call to action that rang out across this land 6 decades ago when President Kennedy challenged us to ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country? If today is the day we all leave here committed to taking these actions, we will be making the most patriotic contribution to our nations, our businesses, and our communities that even President Kennedy and Mahatma Gandhi could have imagined. Thank you for what you're doing. Enjoy the rest of the conference.